Welcome to Marketing Mixologists, the podcast that brings together marketing and mixology for an exciting journey into modern-day marketing.
We think marketing should be like your favorite cocktail, fully balanced, flavorful, and memorable.
We'll explore all things related to marketing, from understanding the basics to uncovering advanced strategies.
With special guests joining us each episode, we'll share insights from experts in the field and share our favorite drinks.
Whether you like it shaken or stirred, grab your favorite beverage and join us as we learn more about how powerful marketing can be when mixed well. Cheers! So for this week's episode, we are covering the power of partnerships. We're speaking with Barrett King. He's the Senior Director of Channel and Alliances at a software company, as well as host of the podcast Outcomes, where partnerships and SaaS meet. So thank you for joining us, Barrett. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, long walks on the beach. I enjoy candy, and it's interesting. I don't have a traditional background. I actually went to school for design, and when I graduated, it was 2008, and the world was imploding from a professional perspective. So I actually landed in restaurants and did that for a period of time. I was a host. I did some hospitality work around event booking and whatnot, all the way up to GM. And then I thought it would be a good idea to leave the industry in 2010 when everything crashed again for a second time. And I found myself back in restaurants for a period of about a year, and ultimately landed back in SaaS because I just really enjoy the space, the pace, all the things that come with being in it. So I think about my career very specifically like a Lego tower. Like I have all these different colored bricks and sizes and whatnot. And over the last couple of years, I've worked hard to try and reorganize those. But generally speaking, I'm a technologist. I like reading. I like single focus sports. My wife always says things that are about me, less team oriented, because I'm team oriented by profession. And and that's sort of like Barrett in a nutshell.
I'm the same way about sports, actually. I'll run and I'll bike, but
Yes.
Don't ask me to play soccer because I'll hit you in the face accidentally. So.
Yeah, it's funny. I also run. I also bike. I do a couple other things that are very like single focus. I describe it as. I think it's because it isolates all the noise in my head. Like I'm not stuck listening to myself as much. I end up focusing on like the 100 feet in front of me or whatever it is. So yeah, I'm with you.
Love that. That's a nice way of thinking about it.
Well, that's interesting since we're here to talk about partnerships and you only want to be by yourself when you're doing sports.
It makes sense though, right? I mean, that's what I do all day long is partnerships. And then, obviously I focus on myself when I'm not in those environments.
Well, Barrett, we have known each other. Well, first of all, thanks for being on and being a participant to the craziness here. And, we have known each other now for
2017.
17, yeah.
Right, so it's 2023 now.
Yeah. And I remember, it was when I first started my agency, right after I first started my agency, and you just happened to come along and be my cam at HubSpot, which, by the way, I'm just going to go on record and say you're the best one.
Whoa. I'll take that. Yeah, I love a good compliment. Ego boost.
Yeah. Even though there were some days that I really just wanted to strangle you. I really, you did provide me with a lot of insight and support and push. And it was, obviously it was, didn't go unnoticed, or else I would still not be speaking to you after all these years, to be completely honest.
Fast friends. Yeah. Fast friends, to say the least. Love hate. I think it's a fair example of love hate. It worked really well.
It's a good partnership, and still to this day, even though we don't work directly together anymore, I call you on my mental breakdowns and say, God, I need a Barrett moment, and still look to you as a partner. Even outside of, when we originally started working together. And so really, within your role and your, experience, want to just talk through, we've had a couple conversations really over the past couple of months about a lot of things. And one in particular, came to mind, and what we recently had was focusing around, the human connection and really, helping people out when it comes to partnerships, whether it be with a, SaaS product, i.e. like that's how you and I met with HubSpot, or it even be, another marketing agency working with another marketing agency to accomplish, the same goal for their client. So just want to, kind of talk through what really from your perspective and your role over the years, what partnerships have meant to you, both from a professional and even potentially personal level, because I know, other agency partners feel very very much similar with the way I do about their partnership that they, um, have had with you over the years. So you kind of want to, walk us through what your thoughts are, and how you have helped and how people grow, how you've grown from a partner relationship perspective.
Yeah, so I think starting from the top to unpack the idea of partnership, it's important to focus on the people element first. And so it's easy to say that partnership's about revenue, partnership's about outcomes, like I say on my show a lot, right? Partnership is truly about the intersection of two companies and a customer, and that all starts with people. And so the way that I think about, there's this description of like the value triangle. So if you can picture, if you're not watching me right now, you can hopefully describe this in your own mind. But the value triangle being, in the left-hand side, you've got your business. On the right-hand side, you've got your customer. And at the top, if you will, you've got your partner. And the theory is that if you work with the right partner, then the value that you deliver goes to them, and it's on their shoulders, if you will, to deliver that value back to your customer. And that happens because your partners own your customers' trust. You don't. And I think that's actually a misconception. There's a lot of software companies, in particular in SaaS, certainly, that run the kind of gambit in terms of how much trust their customers actually give them. But ultimately, these partners, in particular agencies, to your point today, are working very closely with your end customer, right? That's just the nature of the way that that work transpires. And so it's important to recognize that all of these intersections, these moments where value transfers, all hinge on people. And it doesn't work if the people don't work together towards a collective, better together story, a collective outcome that ultimately derives the value that the end customer is looking for. And so I think what I most specifically like to focus on is the idea that I should care about my partnerships. Certainly my customers, although it tends to be a bit more transactional. There are folks in your organization that will be closer to that customer. But from a partner perspective, I know about your dogs, and I know about your husband, and I know about your obsession with being a boater, and like I know things about you, Stacy, because
Okay, but
we've
that's
spent time
creepy.
together. It's true. I
Creepy.
know a lot about you,
Stalking.
but it's important because I think yes, I follow you on social media, and yes, I hear these stories from you when we talk, and the good and the bad times. But frankly, it's because what we're doing here, business in general now, is more human than it's ever been. And so when I think about partnerships holistically, I talked to Jay McBain, who's over at Canalys, which is like one of the biggest analytics firms in terms of data management around partnerships. And one of the things he said is like, this is the decade of the ecosystem. He talks a lot about that. And in particular, I think that's important because the way that buyers buy, we love this phrase in marketing and sales, right? The way that buyers buy has changed. Maybe. I think people have changed. I think because the way that our access to the internet has shifted, we've got more information in front of us than ever. What we're looking to are those people, those relationships that we have where we have trust. And again, from a professional perspective, that all starts with the person that I go to when I have a problem, a challenge, a need, an outcome that I'm looking for. And that's most specifically the agency that helps me with my marketing. That's the sales firm that's guiding the way that I go to market. That's the IT consulting company that's helping me to keep the infrastructure of my business running. Those are the relationships I've already developed. And so naturally, I go to those people first, which inherently represent the partnerships that as a software company, I should think about developing because they own that trust, as I described before, and they're engaged with the buyer, the end customer that I'm looking for, way before they ever go to the internet, right? Like they're going to go and have a chat on the phone like you used to call me. Hey, I'm thinking about this thing. Barrett, what do you think? And I don't always have the right answer, but I had a perspective and I could offer that because we had partnership and we had trust, started with a relationship we developed, early on.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that I cherish when I even, have other people to talk to from a partnership. I mean, even if it's not a transactional partnership and it's just more, somebody in your corner, helping to brainstorm ideas. It's really that feedback loop that is, in my opinion, what causes a true, or what builds a true partnership. And I think a lot of times in dealing with, tech companies, building out partner programs, obviously being in, a variety of partner programs ourselves, we have sometimes lose the or lose sight of the importance of understanding and really working with people, as much as sometimes I do truly hate people. Let's just be
Yeah, that is
honest.
one of your character
Yeah.
traits. It's worth
Yeah.
highlighting.
It's
On record,
amazing.
I'll say
I
that. You
mean, that's
not
really
the
why
biggest
you,
fan.
that
Add
was
it to your
like,
CV.
Yeah.
you really like went back and that was really why you liked me, because I just hated people and I was
But
honest
actually,
about it.
but we can joke about that, but it's kind of true to some extent. Like, I think what you did really well, and again, speaking about partnership, is you didn't take me as somebody who just knew everything. In fact, there were days you would say bullshit and you would challenge me and you would, contradict what I was trying to offer in terms of perspective, much like the relationships that matter most to us. We
Mhm.
argue and fight and push back and we create those boundaries. The same thing is true in partnership. So the reason
Yeah.
that you and I work, the reason we've stayed in touch, I think, is yes, we click, we understand each other, we have a mutual trust, but also because we enable the other person to push back and say, no, it doesn't work, or I don't agree, or whatever needs to be said to, again, deliver towards the outcome that we're looking for. I agree with
Right.
you.
And it comes down, honesty and transparency and,
100%.
and that's really what, in my opinion, partnerships, regardless of what the partnership might be, should really be at the core value of, and, losing sight of that can be detrimental to a lot of partner programs, as we've, have discussed over the years, in various, conversations. And so as far as building, obviously you were, I mean, I don't know if you were there from the ground up with HubSpot, but you were at least there from the ground up with me, from the HubSpot, partner ecosystem. And, not necessarily speaking of, HubSpot necessarily, but just because that's how we got started. I mean, what really, even with all your other partners, do you think that they valued the most out of, or still value the most, out of, a partnership and working with obviously a well-known solution, that has really helped them, progress in the, marketing world?
I think the first thing that most organizations look for in any partnership is additive value. I don't want to work with somebody because it's neutral. There's no reason to do that. And I think in the example you gave in terms of HubSpot, what we did early on, I joined, I think we were about 2 years in at the time that I joined HubSpot, something like that, give or take, a year and a half. Pete Caputa, our founder of the program, brilliant guy. For those of you that listen to this that
Mhm.
haven't followed him, go follow him. He's really, really smart, offers a lot of feedback. What Pete did really well is he thought about the opportunity, both in terms of how it would help us, but I think more specifically in how it would help those agencies to grow better. And a lot of what drew me to HubSpot and why, frankly, I said yes to the interviews and ultimately, subsequently went after the opportunity and got it, was that we talked very specifically. And I remember this in the first day of training. This woman who was running training at the time, I was a go-getter, little eager beaver. I sat down front and like bright-eyed and
Really?
bushy-tailed and wanted to learn
Huh.
everything. I know, not surprising,
Interesting.
right?
Hmm. No.
and and she walked up to my desk, the desk that I was sitting at, and she slammed the desk, like fist on the desk in front of me, and said, "HubSpot fundamentally changes people's lives." I remember being like, "Shit, okay, I got to pay attention. Like that's legit. That's a big statement." And what ended up happening subsequently thereafter is I realized when she was talking about that, yes, the software was great, and yes, it was helpful, and you improved your, but what we were doing when we work with agencies, we were actually helping them to build, in some ways, a more efficient part of their business. Not everything. And there was a misconception, and there still is in the industry, that partner programs need to be about changing the partner themselves, the agency or the SI or whatever it is, to be more like the end B2B company, the SaaS company. I like on record fundamentally disagree with that. I think in the best ecosystems, what you have is that these partners are already doing something really well. So I picture, like, I'm an analogies guy. So I picture a box, like really simple. And in that box, there's like gears and levers and pulleys, and that's the machine that they've built. Whatever size they're at, that works for them. And what you should be able to do is show up and knock on their door and say, hey, like, I have another box. I can go ahead and attach it to the side of yours. And if you want, you can like knock out the space between at some point and connect them together. But ultimately, like, this thing just works and it creates value and it helps you deliver more something to your customer or more revenue to your business or whatever it might be. And so I think when you look back at the early stages of any ecosystem, HubSpot's included, the best ones attracted those businesses that were looking to build something scalable, repeatable, easier to deliver value to their customer. And so one of the things that I did, I was a rep acquiring agencies in the beginning and building a book of business, and then I was running sales training at one point for partners specifically, is I looked at our positioning and we were talking about change who you are. Don't be a marketing agency, a digital agency, a social agency. Be an inbound agency. And I think for a lot of the businesses that we worked with, that was fine. They were happy to throw out the window whatever play they had already established and start a new one, which was to be an inbound marketing agency. For most, in my opinion, that wasn't the right move. And so I shifted a lot of our positioning to say, let's increase revenue and value per customer. Let's implement ROI-centric services, and let's improve your retention process. And the reason I did those three specific things was that all of them benefited both HubSpot and the end customer. But most importantly, that worked because of the intersection with the partner. And so you asked the question of like, what were partners looking for? What kind of the value are they trying to uncover? Most specifically, it was those three things in terms of how do I deliver more value to my customer? If I work with HubSpot, I get, maybe in my own case, and in some cases, somebody who understands my business model, somebody who can help coach and guide me a little bit in terms of providing feedback and be a sounding board and whatnot. But ultimately, I get a business model in a box that works, it's scalable, it's repeatable. And if I go to market with that company, I know that I can build a predictable revenue stream that helps my customers most effectively. And that was the intent that I had. And I think what you see in a lot of really successful ecosystems is that early on, and whenever I like coach or do any kind of consulting or feedback, I always start off with what is the specific reason that by working with this, whoever it is, agency or other partners, other business, that your customer is better for it. And if the answer is as simple as like they do the work, then great. Then there's your value intersection. If it's they help me to migrate to that platform, great. There's your value intersection. And those partners that work with you as a software company are going to do so because they take that value intersection and it makes them better. How they help their customer, how they grow their business, all the downstream things that I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm. And, I know, I mean, you knew this from the beginning. I struggled with the model of going from a consultative marketing, and at that point it was just me, right? So I struggled with going from being a consultant to being a salesperson for HubSpot, basically. And that was not my model. My model was to offer HubSpot, particularly, as well as other platforms, clearly, if it made sense for the clients, but not to be I'm going to shove this down your throat and hope that this works for you.
You want to stay agnostic. That makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, for a good partnership, in my opinion, I mean, some agencies go and they only do one platform, but a good partnership with in my opinion, with any platform or any other company, they understand that it's just as important to have other partnerships as it is to have the partnership with that particular company. And it really shook me a little bit. And it made me stop actually working with HubSpot because I was like, I'm not going to turn into a salesperson and just, push HubSpot down people's throats because that's what HubSpot wanted me to do. And we had multiple arguments about it. And
not
arguments, lighthearted conversations and
spirited conversations. Yes. Yep.
But when I kind of got my head around it, I was like, no, this is not who I am. This is not what I'm doing. And I'm going to do what I'm doing, but I'm also going to offer HubSpot. And I think that goes along back to your comment about, adding a value added service to what, an agency might already be doing. It just adds another, platform or offering to what they're doing on a larger scale.
And I think it took time to realize that, though. I don't want to talk over you, but I think it's important to say out loud, like part of why, and I'm open about this, like why you and I had confrontation and had conflict was because I didn't have that perspective, right? Like it's really important as the technology provider, as the leader, if you will, of building the ecosystem, to be very intentional about listening to your end partner. And like, to be clear, you're not always right, but neither am I. And I think that's important to recognize in terms of being able to be very intentional around, the fact that partnership is not one-sided. And I will say, like, not specifically HubSpot, but a lot of B2B SaaS organizations look at partner and they use the word partner as actually channel or VAR. And the challenge with that is that the expectation is misset. So there were definitely times in Salesforce and Microsoft and HubSpot and any of these big organizations in their ecosystem's evolution where it was very specifically about expansion. It was VAR. It was go sell our software and add some services to make sure it gets delivered properly and let's go faster. And then those ecosystems evolve and change. And then it's more MSP, managed services. And, so I think it's important to recognize where the business is at in their ecosystem, development and maturity, and then more specifically, engage with the type of a type of partners that your customers need. And so for your case, actually, I agree with you. Like, there were definitely conversations where I said to you, you need to do, and you said no. And I remember being very frustrated, like, come on, we talked about this. Yeah, surprise, surprise. You said no. But I think in conjunction with that, what's important to recognize that was on me for not also seeing that you were not in the position to then go and do that kind of work that I was, begging, if you will, for you to do. What I could have done is pivoted and listened to you more. And my advice to anyone hearing this would be like, listen more, talk less. I say to my 4.5-year-old all the time, like, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, which means you should probably listen a bit more than you talk. Although he is like a micro me, so he talks a lot.
Oh,
Anyways, I digress here, but the
God
bottom
help
line is
your
like,
wife.
she's a very patient woman. As you think about like the bigger picture here, right? Like, what you want to be able to do is find the balance between the two. I want to push you a little bit to think differently about your go-to-market model. I need you to pull me back a little bit, slow down, and be more specific in the way that we do that together.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, and you've, over the past several years, our conversations have definitely turned to that, even though
yeah.
you're not in we're not in the same, working level that we used to be. But even when I call you and I'm like, hey, Barrett, I have an idea. And we're able to have those conversations versus
Sure.
the be a salesperson conversation, for all, pun intended. But so as far as, obviously we're talking about collaboration and, creating a supportive environment for your partners, and the difference. And I think you brought up a really good point there. The difference between a true partner program versus a VAR program, and like how companies can really, really the best way to differentiate the two. Because I do think that a lot of companies get them intermingled. So as an example, I worked with a company where we implemented Partner Stack for their tech stack.
Yep.
And that's a true reseller, VAR. They're only getting marketing material support. That's about it, and it's all pay, or sign up and hopefully get a commission. Versus a true partner program where you're generally, supporting that person or people holistically. Can you just, talk a little bit about that, and just the importance of companies understanding the true difference between a VAR versus a true 100% partner program?
Yep. Before I answer, Harley, Annie, can I burn it down right now? Get a little aggressive? Is that okay? On the show,
Get
is that allowed?
aggressive.
Go for
Okay.
it.
Oh yeah.
All right.
We can say things.
We can get messy. Let's
Yep,
get
we can
messy.
get
All right.
Messy.
So I'm gonna conflict one of the things you said first, because it's fun to create conflict. So first
Okay.
off, especially with you, first
Yeah.
off, partner is a term that, like, frankly, is just, it should be a dirty word at this point. It is so overused. It's like saying fuck in front of your grandmother. Like, you just shouldn't do it.
Wait,
And
I did
it's
it all the time.
I
when
bet
she
you
was
do
still
that on a
alive.
daily
She loved
basis.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
I
loved it. Yeah.
I think it's really easy to like get comfortable with the fact that partner is this all-encompassing statement. What we should be thinking about as, leaders that are building businesses around partnerships is it's an ecosystem. And an ecosystem should be made up of a variety of different mechanisms to enable your customer to be better, to enable your business to grow more effectively, et cetera. I think the difference being that you have, VAR, which is, for listeners' sake, value added reseller. You sell the software and you do something with it. I'll explain that more in a minute. You've got MSP, managed service provider. You're probably not selling as much. You're servicing more, although sometimes you are. It's a different conversation. You've got reseller, literally what the word sounds like. You've got distribution, which is obviously two-tier against that. And I could go on for probably another 5 minutes in terms of verbiage, right? Words that,
Okay,
that
let's
make up
not.
some version of that. Let's not. Well, that'll be in the footnotes afterwards. Barrett said a bunch of words, and then we kept going.
And no one wanted to listen.
And we moved on. Yeah. No one ever does. So I think the interesting part of the intersection of all of that is, like, when we talk about the dynamic in terms of what your partners should be doing, we talk about partners, they should be, if we use that term specifically, organizations that add value to your business and your end customer's outcome. That's it, full stop. And that might mean integrations, that might mean app partners, it might mean a variety of different things. What's important to note, though, is it's not a single dimension. What you're talking about, I think, is really important, though, Stacey, because it all goes back to evolution. I talk about this a ton. It's probably over-talked in my world in that sense, but it really is about business sophistication, how those businesses evolve. And when they start out early, as they learn the mechanism of how do we grow, more often than not, I had a D2C founder earlier. They have the software platform that helps Shopify agencies. Really cool tool. I totally get it. She's really smart. And one of the things she said to me, I won't use her name, but she said very specifically, I want to build a program where we sell with agencies. And I was like, cool. Why? She was like, because I want to grow our business faster and I want to help our customers use our platform more. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. Most people say just the first part. I want to sell more. I want to get there faster. She wants to help her customers be more successful. Now she's thinking about it in multi-dimension, and that's more valuable. I would label that partnership, even though the mechanism is a little bit VAR, right? It's like you want the agency to sell the software to the customer, kind of like HubSpot, like Salesforce and others, sell the software to the customer, and then deliver the software, implement it, integrate it, migrate to it and whatnot, and then go to market with that customer on your behalf. However, it's additive. And so one of the first bits of advice that I gave was go and talk to your customers about what their current agencies are doing using that software and why that's helping them to be better. Again, partnership, because we're talking about mutual outcomes and mutual beneficial everything. All of your actions are that way. So I think that's the important thing. I'll land the plane on this, but to separate the two and say partnership is the act of how you work with these organizations. The category of like VAR or app partner or integration, MSP, et cetera, is perhaps the lever that you pull, the mechanism in which you deliver on that partnership.
Yeah, and I agree with that to a certain extent because they're the level, I mean, and I guess we could really break it down further, but to what level do you create that human connection with somebody that's just reselling?
No, I think it's there's different levels to that too. It's really easy to say like partnership means you have to know, I won't say the dog's name, but we'll have to know a dog's name or a child's name or like care about that level of detail. Partnership can be about, and I keep saying this, but I'll say it again, mutual outcomes. It can be about your business being better together, and that's okay too. And it might mean that your closeness, if you will, your understanding comes from professional goals. So it might be as simple as saying, like, by working together, I know that you're going to achieve your next promotion, or you're going to grow the company faster, which helps your stakeholders, stockholders, et cetera, win. Like, that's okay too. And so I think partnership, perhaps the misconception, or maybe it's just because you and I spent so much time together, so like our perception's different. But when I think about partnership, at the core, it's just about better together outcomes for your customer, for your organizations, like everyone wins. To what level you understand each other is perhaps based off of the dynamic that you establish. So for you and I, and in particular for HubSpot's ecosystem early on, it was SMB agencies. It was agencies that were, less than 50 employees and that were really in the work every day. And so because of that, perhaps they were more lifestyle oriented and less business grow at all costs, got to go faster oriented, more growth oriented in that sense. In either scenario, I knew a lot about my partners, leaders, the folks that I spent time with, because that's my personality. That's like who I am as a person. If you ever meet my patient, as we described, wife, she would say like, yeah, Barrett talks to everybody. I know everybody in that sense. I try to because I care about people. That's who I am. But I don't think partnership necessarily has to mean that. But it does mean investment. So it means trying to some extent to find that middle ground where you both win and communicate to that effect. That could be, again, as simple as like, I want to get promoted and buy a new house. It could be as complex as like, where do I get engaged or where do I go and buy my first car? Like, it's really up to you to find that level of connection.
So how I mean, for those, people that are looking for partnerships, whether it be a tech partner or what have you, I mean, how do you what would you say your best practice would be to evaluating that and really knowing, what the if it is going to be, setting the stage really and setting and understanding, like we'll go back to my days where, I'm just starting and I'm, I am on HubSpot because I was consulting on HubSpot. And I just signed up, there was nothing more than that. And then it basically evolved into a bigger, again, partnership, if you will, with us. But what are some of the tips when looking at, best, your best solution partner as an example, or MarTech partner, if you're an agency, or even, a company, looking to partner with an agency or looking for a tech stack as an example?
Let's go agency first, then I'll go company backwards. So I think the agency side is in some ways easier because you get to be a lot more discerning and intentional around who you work with, in particular because you can look at specifically not just the benefit in terms of revenue, do we make money through this partnership, but how much do they understand? So did really well. I'll use myself as an example because it's easy. When I started at HubSpot, I was acquiring agencies. And what I did when I watched my peers reach out and say, when I talk to agencies like you that are delivering social media services, I often find that they're struggling to understand how to better prove ROI. I'm like, it's accusatory, it's assumptive. You don't actually understand the problem of that agency potentially. So I went the other direction. I said, while searching around your area, I came across, I actually remember the email. Stacy, while searching around your area, I recently came across, Uncommon Marketing and was really impressed with the scope of your work. Right now, I'm actively searching for a driven digital marketing leader like yourself to join the HubSpot Partner Program and more specifically my team. At the onset, it looks like you could be a fit, but of course, no promises. So it's Tuesday at 3:00 to connect and have a discussion, get better acquainted, and see if we should work together. Like, straight and to the point. I didn't know shit. I didn't know if you were even open to partnership. But what I knew is that as a leader of an organization, when a software company says, we'd like to consider partnering with you, you'd like to learn more. And I would get on that first phone call and I would do some research. And I had a 95% open rate on my email. I had an 85% response rate. I blew it out of the water because all I did was listen. And so that's my advice is on the receiving end of that, if you're the agency, you want somebody talking to you that understands how their software, how their platform actually helps you help your customer. Because if I know agency owners, the first thing they care about most, it's the customer. They really care about the delivering of value to that end customer. If the software company cares about the same thing, you got some alignment there. It's worth a conversation. The secondary piece to it is, upon sign up, I want to understand what I get, not just money, not just a bunch of online resources, but how are you actually going to help me take my skills from I know nothing to whatever level of proficiency I'm looking for? Expert, right? Like absolute, guru and ninja, or just ability to do work in the platform. That's up to you. But set your expectations early and understand through that discovery process what by signing up you get in terms of resource to go from 0 to proficient. That's really important. And if you're signing up for an early partner program, set that expectation. All right, you don't have anything together yet. That's okay. I'll work with you and we'll define it together. And that's fine. I'll be an early adopter that gets me in the door. I get to drive the strategy, maybe, from my agency, et cetera. And then the third piece I think is the intangible, which is what we talked about before, and that's the people. Do I like this person I have to work with every day? In particular, early, the earlier programs, because you're going to be with that person for a while, most likely. But what I mean by that is when I talk to them, do they use empathetic words? Do they listen to me? Is it just transactional? And that's what I want, and that's okay. I'm looking for that. Or is it more human, like I know you wanted, and we certainly developed our relationship around? Those things are all important. I would argue the other side of the same coin, if we go from the software perspective, is that all those things need to be delivered upon and more. You need to understand the industry that you're selling to, both in terms of customer you're engaging with and the partners that your customers are working with, in particular now more than ever. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking all right, how do I do that? Go to where your customers exist now. Where does their trust actually come from? They're going to, maybe it's Reddit. They're going to a LinkedIn group. They're, consuming content on some website that talks about, thought leadership in XYZ category. That's all valuable points to helping you to build, the influencers, the evangelical part of what your ecosystem needs to be. And the listening is the most important piece. And what I would encourage is yes, you need to build a program and yes, you need to deliver value and sure, but all of that comes from listening to what your end customer, which is your partner in this example, is actually saying to you. But listening with the intent to understand, not just listening for word's sake, but actually looking for the tactical, tangible feedback that they're going to give you that'll tell you what you're screwing up every day. It's actually not that hard to build partnerships successfully if your ears are turned on, if your mouth is shut, and you action what you get in terms of feedback, in particular early. Ultimately, and I'll stop here, I think both parties, when they recognize that their work together does deliver more value for the end customer, I've said it a bunch, I feel silly saying it, but the outcome is better. The sum of two parts is greater than the whole or whatever that statement should be. I think those things are really relevant and valuable because your end customer will continue to work with both of you when by doing so, they win. More revenue, better product, easier go to market, whatever it is. If you can do those things together and the customer wins, everybody, benefits.
And what would you say, from over the years, obviously we talked about, the level of partnership, or I keep using partnership over and over again. The level we'll start a new hashtag. Don't use partnership.
Hashtag not partners.
Yeah. No partners ever again. How has the landscape changed from an eco partnership slash hashtag don't use partnership ecosystem
There you
perspective.
go. Yeah.
How has that how have you seen that change over the years?
In terms of like the diversity or like the need for certain things, give me like a lens take.
I would say more so. I would say the applicate of how the applications are being how it's being rolled out differently over the years. From a growth perspective, is it is our partner programs, whatever they might be, VAR, MSP, whatever, are they increasing? Are they decreasing?
Mm,
In usage and application and development and how important really overall in any company, regardless if it's SaaS or not SaaS, how important is having some sort of a partner, program
yep.
for a company, regardless. It doesn't, it's industry agnostic. It doesn't, my opinion, it doesn't matter because partnerships are partnerships no matter what they, bring to that, those two people or those two companies.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's certainly increased. I mean, to keep it really simple in terms of my response, I think what is important to note is the idea that actually I talked to a gentleman named Logan Lyles. He's over at Teamwork on my show recently. I was just looking at the episode today because he's featured next week on LinkedIn, and relative to the time that this was recorded. So if you're watching this, it's definitely live on LinkedIn by now. But Logan made a comment that I thought was really relevant, which was like, and we kind of joked about it, and I'll say it again here. It's important. We said, everyone loved to say years ago, this is about, what's it, 15 years ago or so now, like, the way that marketing was done is dead. We love to like terminate things as a society. We're very like terministic, right? Like, oh, it's dead. It's never going to come back. And that was the advent of inbound. The idea that like a billboard worked, oh, it's dead, and radio worked, and it's dead. No, and like, well, radio works because podcasts have ads now. It's the same thing, different format, right? Okay, fine. So maybe it evolved. And he's like, no. The next thing was like the age of the like, salesperson, right? Like sales is dead, and you're like, what? Come on. It's like, oh, it's all about. And we love to have these terministic statements. These statements that say at the onset of whatever this profound moment is, everything we've ever known is gone. I think what you've seen is an evolution. I love that term. I think it's very relevant here. The ecosystem model has changed because it used to be a single dimension. You had a VAR program, and it serviced one of those outcomes, marketing or sales. So I think about like who sat at the table with the CEO. It was sales because they touched revenue. It was marketing because they drove revenue opportunity. Now it's the ecosystem leader. You see chief ecosystem officer. You see senior vice president of partnerships. And you see these folks now certainly tied to a revenue number, but tied to an impact outcome as well, influenced revenue and the growth of like perhaps a retention number. And the metrics that help drive the business are more than ever tied to the partnerships that we establish in our organization. And so I think what you're seeing more now in 2023, we're like mid 23 when this is recorded, is that ultimately ecosystems are more important because, yeah, all the things I said earlier to be true, your customer is listening to their partners more. Their trust lies in people outside your organization if you're the SaaS business in that example. But also because in order for your head of marketing, your CMO to be successful, your head of sales, your SVP, whatever of sales, in order for those folks to win, they have to work with partners. And so what you've seen, and you will see significantly, I would bet my career on this, is that over the next 3 to 5 years, that accelerates. It's already accelerated significantly in the last like 24 months, that the next 10 years, call it 21, 22, are starting to ramp up through like early 2030, which is crazy to say out loud. That's where you're going to see this significant uptick in ecosystem development, in surround sound. And I don't mean like everyone's going to have a reselling partner program, blah, blah, blah. No, but just understanding that your customer is gaining their insight and their trust and their knowledge from people other than you, and that they do it way before your marketing or sales team even touches them. It's important to engage with those folks, those businesses and organizations first, and develop a sense of understanding and trust there where they can educate your customer as they then engage marketing, sales, and become a customer of yours.
So that being said, you kind of lead us into the next, next point here. What do you see? How do companies stay ahead of the curve when it comes to this evolution that you're saying is that you bet your career on? Which we have it. I just pinned a little mark clip, so that way I can quote it over and over and over again, just in case you really screwed up and said something really bad. Just
I'm
saying.
excited for those text messages. Yeah. I think to stay ahead of it, you have to be intentional around continuously listening to the market. Like most folks say to me something like, well, how do I know where to start? And I think it's no different than how do I know where to invest, which is true right now. If I've got something as a foundation, how do I continue to grow that? If you're not, as a marketing, sales, certainly CEO, but marketing, sales, CS leader right now, meeting with both your head of partnerships and your customers themselves, that's on you, because those two representative bodies are going to give you the feedback necessary to know where to invest. So your customer is going to tell you the partnerships that you haven't established. They're going to tell you where they're gaining trust. They're going to certainly tell you what your product is doing well and what it's not. But most importantly, they're going to help you identify where your opportunities are. So if you look at like your last, I don't know, let's say you're a B2B company, you've got some revenue, you've got, a couple thousand customers. Like if it were me, once a quarter, I would make it a point to have a 10 to 15% of my population be connected with. Like, not a survey. I don't mean some silly email that goes out. I mean, as the CEO, you should be emailing your best and worst customers and saying, I want 30 minutes of your time. I want to understand. And in that question set, I would make it a point to talk about what are the other organizations you working with, what other businesses are helping you to deliver value with on through our platform, and or who you're working with, whether tools, whether systems you're working with in tandem with ours. Because not all partnerships are about selling more. Sometimes it's about better technology alignment, better platform, ecosystem development, how can we build better integrations and whatnot, et cetera. The other thing that could be true is that you should be listening to those partners that you have early on. Let's assume you've established some sort of a baseline. You're going to do the thing that I describe as like LinkedIn used to have this feature where you could go to someone's specific like company page, and on the right-hand side, it said people also viewed. It's probably still there. I haven't looked in a while.
I think so, yeah.
Like that's how I found a lot of my partners, right? Right? It's the like people also viewed component of it. You should think about that in terms of your own partnerships. So if you want to build an ecosystem, it's looking at your partners and saying, well, who else are you working with? So it's asking your customer and your partner, where are those opportunities for me to be in the places where you are and do something of value so I can continue to listen to what the market needs and stay ahead of that curve.
And if someone, a business owner, CEO, their startup, and at what point would you say would be a good point to start building out a partner program and what an ecosystem, if you will, regardless of how small or big it is, and regardless of if it's resell or non-resell? At what point do you think that is a good point of differentiation for specifically, obviously, for a software company?
I think it's easier. It's probably the easiest question you've asked me, which is like
Aww.
yesterday,
Oh.
like for real, like get in front of it ASAP. It's people always say, when do I
I
start?
thought you were going to go into more than you did.
No, I know. I will. I think so. Like people say, when do I start? Right? When do I start is relevant and relative to how you want to build your business. And I think it's really easy, especially with traditional sales leaders and CMOs and whatnot, to say like, well, we can do it our own way first and brute strength this thing. I don't think you can anymore. Like if you want my opinion, and I'm certainly biased, I'll admit that openly here in this recording for you, but I think ecosystem is really the go-to-market you're going to see over the next 10 to 15 years. That will be the kind of next frontier. You saw it with inbound, you saw it with early sales stuff. Like I get that. There'll always be closing, right, of the 80s and 90s turned into like inbound content marketing of the really like early 2000s and through. And now I think it's the partnership ecosystem development opportunity, because the surround sound you to build around your business will define how you win in the market. And I don't mean, to your point, single dimension. I mean, if you are you're a 5-person team with 5 customers, or you're a 5,000 person team with 5,000 customers, you should be listening to those businesses and figuring out where they are intersecting with other companies. And there's groundswell on that. Again, that founder I mentioned earlier, actually, I literally talked to her this morning, a few hours ago, and she had talked about, well, we're now exploring thinking about partnerships because we're realizing that outbound isn't working as well. And I was like, cool. It's bigger than that though. They're, I forget how many employees they have, forgive me, but they get about 100 customers, paying customers at this point, bunch of freemium users too. And so that gives you kind of a relative idea in terms of how big they are. Less than $1 million ARR, so they're small-ish. And she said, I just figured out that like my customers are working with other organizations, and we should be figuring out how to do that too. And I was like, oh, it's really simple. Have you talked to your customers? And she's actually, I did. Like I talk to my customers every quarter. I grab 3 to 5 of them that are new, and I'm noticing more and more are talking about, well, can I bring my agency to this? Can I bring my partner to this? because they've got these trusted advisors that are helping them go to market, because going to market is more complex than it's ever been because there's more technology than there's ever been. And so I think what
Right.
you're ultimately starting to see is that when we talk about the inception of a program, it's the wrong question to ask. Like, the program will come. You should hire people that have done that before and can help you build the structure and the guardrails. But partnerships, day one. Who do we integrate with? How do we go to market together? What do our customers need that we're not delivering? All of those intersections with other firms represent opportunity for partnership, day one.
Yeah, and it just couples on top of, it and I think you had mentioned this, but casting a broader net for your company. So you look at it from, if you don't even
Yeah.
look at it from a financial / revenue perspective, you have much more brand awareness, much more reach, and you're providing that. Again, you're really casting that broader awareness across the potential customer base that you may not already have.
Well, that's partner-led marketing, and that's a whole
Mhm.
other conversation, probably for a different episode. But I do think that
Mhm.
it's worth saying out loud. A lot of folks think about partnerships historically in terms of revenue drivers. I think revenue drivers being specifically, do they sell or service a software? So sort of later state. Partner-led marketing is huge. Your partners
Yeah.
are already in your market, especially as you think about expansion or you think about early go-to-market. Like, they own that customer trust, as I've said several times. And so
Mhm.
subsequently, their endorsement of your platform, their encouragement of your system makes all the difference. And they've got reach, to your point. Like, they've got
Right.
SEO, they've got customers, they've got understanding in the market. And what I think you saw certainly HubSpot do really well early on was understanding that by working with marketing agencies, we also gained reach. And so
Mhm.
our company could grow more effectively because, yes, you were talking to our customers, you were also talking to the folks that we would like to make customers in the future too.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else that you want to pitch in about, partners, or how wonderful you think I am, and how much you miss me?
Yeah, we should definitely start with the latter half of that. I mean, Stacey, you're great. You know that. I think you do great in terms of helping customers grow. I think, your comments earlier, though they irked me at the time and drove me crazy, are really important, which is that you are agnostic. I think what you're going to see more and more today and tomorrow and beyond is that partners are not all in on one software. I think the best businesses, in particular in the agency space, SI, like those close to the problem businesses, are
Mhm.
the ones that understand that software is a tool that
Mhm.
provides a solution in terms of an outcome. They solve a problem or achieve a goal and whatnot. And the more you can learn and diversify your own business while being strategic about it, like, don't just put your hand in every pie, but be
Mhm.
intentional in terms of having 3 to 5 core partnerships from an email marketing perspective, and 2 to 4 CRM, and like just being aware of what the market allows. It's like putting tools in your tool belt. You need a hammer, and maybe you need 2 hammers, and you need a screwdriver, and you need all these things to be able to go and fix your house, if you will, for your customer in this example. The more tools you can put in your tool belt, the more effective you are. And I think partnership comes from that opportunity. The inception
Mhm.
of these things is all about curiosity and solving for the customer. You've always done that really well, to over compliment here at the end. But also, I think it's worth noting on
I'll
the
take it.
episode that, like, and when you think about how to grow both from the vendor perspective and from the partner perspective, diversity is king and queen right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've always felt that way. And obviously, we've had many conversations about why. Oh, Frankie just walked behind me, in case you just
Oh
wanted to
boy.
see.
No,
Yeah,
I wasn't looking.
wasn't
Uh-oh.
Frankie. But yeah, no, I think it's, the diversification of your portfolio from an offering perspective. And I just had a client come and the other day, and we were talking about marketing automation, and they asked about 2 platforms, specifically 2 that I've not specifically worked in. But I mean, a platform is a platform is a platform. Once you understand, one, you should be able to understand most of it. But if a customer came to me and said, I want to use this platform, I would gladly help them out, because I'm not going to be pushing something again that, a customer does not want to use or need to use, or is
Right.
something that is overly complicated for them at that particular moment in their life cycle of their business, as an example. And I think, that is something that I have always stuck by, and will continue to stick by. And I think, a lot more, I've seen more agencies that in the HubSpot ecosystem have adopted additional platforms as well, whether they're unrelated or closely related to HubSpot in order to be able to offer those variations to their clients. Anything else?
Oh, is it our turn
turn?
to talk? Oh, okay.
Oh, I was
Sorry,
waiting
I
for
forgot
that.
I was
moment.
here.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah. Barrett and I could go on for the next hour if you would like us to with like, I didn't throw out one F-bomb, just so we're clear on this. Okay.
I think I did
might
once.
have.
Yeah.
He did one.
Yeah, now
He
you're
did
you
one.
wanna- Do you want to say it? You can say it.
No, I
If we
have
got
to say
Jill
it
to
in
say fuck, you can say
You
fuck.
can say fuck if we got Jill to
Jill
say
said, Jill said fuck?
She did.
Oh,
Hey,
okay.
there it is.
Well, Barrett, I fucking love you, man.
Yes.
Thanks for
Yeah.
thanks for being on. And
My pleasure.
and I enjoyed everything. And I know Harley has a very actually more important question than what we've talked about this entire time, which is
Okay.
Well, first, I just want to direct people on where they can follow you on social, Barrett.
Cool. Appreciate that. Yeah, LinkedIn certainly is my easiest. I don't use the Twitters and the Facebooks, and maybe I'm too old or I just don't care. I'm definitely not on TikTok. I am most certainly on LinkedIn. And then Outcomes is my show. You can find it on everything, Apple, Spotify, etc. And I have a YouTube channel, which is very interesting to say the least. And you're welcome to certainly follow me there as well. So thank you.
We will link everything in the description for everyone to follow. But the most
Appreciate it.
important question, please share with us, Barrett, your favorite cocktail.
Okay, so I'm a tequila guy, and so I could easily say just like anything with tequila. But I think most specifically, Clase Azul is probably one of my favorites, with just a hint of lime. Don't put the lime in it. Don't you dare put a lime in my like really nice tequila. You can just like
or the coconut.
dust the
Don't
rim.
put the lime
right?
in the coconut. And put
No, there's no coconut either.
song.
Do the lime around the rim a little bit, tequila in a cup, one ice cube, and chill the shit out of it. Frozen tequila is one of my favorites because it doesn't actually freeze, it becomes syrupy. That on a beach, one big block ice cube, and I couldn't be happier. If I had to have a cocktail though, I can go the other end of the spectrum, and certainly if we want to do coconut, like I can do anything with some rum in it on a beach in a like, sun chair looking at the ocean. But if I'm gonna drink, like straight booze guy, it's much more straightforward for me.
So you basically want the lime to have like breathed near the glass. That's
Just
how much
like
lime you
sneeze in that direction.
Yeah,
like just that's
want. A little bit of like lime.
That's
There.
it. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I'm not like a fruit guy in my drink kind of thing. I will say like, painkiller or something like that. I could certainly get down with like something interesting, but I always just went back to just straight and simple and clean and fresh and like very tasty in that sense.
Love it. Stacy, what are you drinking? What's your cocktail du jour?
Okay, well, at this moment, it is a pear martini, and it
Ooh.
has to be. Well, I don't know, Harley. I don't know how to. I made one this weekend by myself, all by myself, and it turned out pretty good. But sometimes
There
I
you go.
put a drop of prosecco in the top. Oh,
Sure.
so good. Yeah,
It's
but
fresh.
just apparently you don't measure the amount of alcohol or vodka you put in it. Apparently,
Listen.
I did this weekend because I wanted to be okay to
Drink
surf.
responsibly.
And
In
and
my
drink
defense,
responsibly.
Stacy does not provide me with the proper tools to.
Got it. Got it.
I have a shot glass.
No, you need a jigger, not a shot glass. That's so.
Very frat party.
Yeah, we're in our 30s. We use jiggers, not glass shot glasses
Yeah.
or red
Well, I
solo
think-
cup shot glasses.
Well, okay. I think once you go over that 40 mark, you just don't give a shit, and so you just are
There
like,
it is.
I'm going to use a
wasn't
shot
there.
glass.
Oh boy.
We said 30s. You're the
I
one
was
that
not
took it
going to
there.
let people know you were over 40, so you did that.
You did this to yourself. Harley, what is your drink du jour?
Anything and everything with a shot of Red Bull.
Basically.
Well, I don't really drink. I
My
really don't
God.
drink like any liquor with Red Bull because that's I mean, Red Bull's dangerous enough as it is. But I'm really trying to remember. Like, oh, okay, I remember one. This is really taking it to my teenage years.
I'm ready.
Green tea shots.
Oh,
What
that's
the-
cute.
What is that? That
You could
sounds
say a lemon drop
disgusting.
if you wanted to as well. Like now you're getting.
Oh,
into,
that
like,
would
the
be better.
early-
I do like lemon drops.
lemon drops are good. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean,
Kamikaze shot.
a
yeah,
lemon
there you go.
drop. Yeah, a lemon drop martini, though, right? Like, We're not doing shots here. We're
Just doing
grown-ups
shots.
now.
Do you want to know a fun fact, actually?
Martini is just a lemon drop shot with an
Yeah, no
added
shit, but at least it's in a
vodka.
damn freaking martini glass.
You classed it up. So, all right,
called
so here's a fun fact, though.
sophistication.
It's interesting to know this. So I stopped drinking a year ago, and I haven't had a single drink in a year. And I don't plan to for the foreseeable future. And what's wild is as you all talk about this, I still remember what they taste like. That's fast.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's that's brains for you.
Barrett, do you have I've cut back drastically on my drinking. I drink a lot of NA beer now. Do you have an NA beer that you like?
Oh, that's such a good call out. I recently found I don't drink a lot of beer in general, but I do when I used to drink, I like Delirium and like really interesting one-off beers. There's one that I could describe to you the can. It's got a light blue label on it. It's an IPA. I don't remember the name of the company,
Is it
but I had
Athletic?
one.
I was gonna say
It might have been Athletic. Yeah, it might have been Athletic. I was somewhere recently and someone was like, you want to drink? It's very social. And I'm like, I don't drink anymore. And they were like, okay, cool. Do you want to be a loser and have a non-alcoholic? And I went, sure, that sounds fine. And I realized I was cooler than them, certainly, but also that I enjoyed the beverage. It was like refreshing and nice. And so anyways, yeah, I'm with you.
I purchased recently a like an NA liquor. It's just called mezcal. I guess it's supposed to be like a tequila. It's by the brand
That's wild.
Monday. I haven't tried it yet.
Okay, let us know how it goes. Now I'm curious.
They also have a gin.
I've tried a whiskey one.
Is the whiskey good?
It's
I don't know if you
No.
could drink it on its own. It would have to be like in a cocktail, I feel. But
Okay.
I mean, it smells
Mixer.
tequila-esque, tequila adjacent. So I'm okay with
There
that.
you
Well, Barrett, thank you so much. And I look forward to continuing our wonderful discussions and adventures.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode. Tune in next time for another special guest and, of course, more cocktails.
Don't forget to grab your favorite drink and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Marketing Mixologists Pod.